And at long last, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the finale of Twilight of the Gods, the final episode called Song of Sigrid. This one is, of course, directed by Zack Snyder, bookending it with him directing the first episode, and it seems to be written by Eric Carrasco.
Which also wrote
So,
at least the first episode, plus a few other ones.
it'd be interesting to figure if they went straight from writing the first episode to writing the last episode, which, to be fair, isn't completely unheard of in
There
some
definitely
writing
was some kind of
procedures.
pre-planning, and remember, Joe, the fact that Netflix releases all these in block, binge season and everything, they had to be prepared in advance, all of them in advance, instead of actually having some leisure of the weekly release that series on TV tend to have.
My personal guess is that Zack Snyder put out the basic outline of a story, assigned different directors and writers to each episodes, basically said, okay, this needs to happen in this episode, and
And they
probably
also had
smoothed out any
storyboards,
kinks they needed
more
to
likely.
afterwards. That as well. So, audience, this is it. The end of what is so far felt to be a pretty good series, and honestly one I'm kind of growing to be sad did not get a second season. That being said, this finale could very well be the decider. Did the series deserve more? Did it end just right? Or will this ending make it in a way that it's probably for the best it ended, or God help us, we're stuck in purgatory by the end?
Well, we shall see, I guess.
So you know what the drill. Start at the Netflix logo in 3, 2, 1, click. But yeah, all dramatic stuff aside, this definitely feels like one of the best things Zack Snyder has put out in a while. And don't get me wrong, it has a lot of Zack Snyderisms, but they're at least done in a way that they don't feel like a detriment.
It does remind me again his work on Watchmen in a way where it there feels to be more of a purpose than what happened in BBS.
I know it's supposed to be an I, but it makes it look like it's a song of S grid.
Sigrid.
I mean, I literally killed your friend in front of you. I'm surprised the accusations came this late.
Yeah, do it your bloody self.
Guess Loki was added to your party.
Ironic the fact that he has to carry the weapons of a dwarf.
Basically, she left me and said that I should go ahead and bang you and live to happily ever after.
To keep us from harm, but she had to commit harm herself.
You know, I don't remember 100% the details, but I do start to get reminded of the plans that Zack Snyder had for the DC Extended Universe on the long run, which did involve like the the children of Batman and Superman hanging out or something.
Whoopsie, it seems that Sigrid's plan may have backfired. Like, yeah, I mean, she's down to bang, but, wow, obviously she's okay with screwing him, she's apparently more so in love with Sigrid.
Ouch.
Go figure. I mean, to her credit, that's probably one of the most gentle rejections I've ever seen in media. It's not even like she's repulsed by him, it's just, when it comes to true love, it's Sigrid, not Leif.
Also,
So we gotta stop Sigrid from doing something stupid, I guess.
now remember, what Zack Snyder wanted for the DCEU was for Bruce and Lois Lane to have a child.
Wasn't the deal that it was going to be Superman and Lois's kid in the true timeline, but they would name it Bruce in respect to him
it was
because
going to
apparently
be a mess and involving a cock arc nonetheless.
whatever being sorry, the whole Lois being the key to all this would have been that there was a love triangle going on between Superman and Bruce Wayne, which is weird given how the DCAU seemed to be shipping Bruce with Diana instead, though maybe that was a change at some point when those plans got nixed. But long story short, apparently in the timeline where Barry comes from, I guess Bruce and Lois had a kid and, cuck Superman, which means that Superman
Whoa.
was distracted. Oh.
Is it me, or did he borrow that shot from 300?
Possible. And there
Yeah.
goes the leader of the Vanir.
Oh, wait, he's
Ow.
still up.
Well, for how long? This poor Borg got insta-killed.
Wait, hold on. What were you about to implore him on? I'd like to take back all the violence and everything.
So, now what?
No. We could use his twitching corpse to scare him or something.
Wait, apparently his body can still move.
And that's where Starscream arrived. Vanir, I am your new leader! Jesus, we get it for. Holy shit.
Okay, now I think he's down.
Are we sure about that?
Oh, look at all the pretty flowers amongst the blood.
I guess it's good fertilizer. I guess you could say that.
Oh, get it? Because their love withered, the harvest hasn't been doing that well.
I mean, it's a common theme in mythology. The deities being an aspect of what they govern. If they so detach themselves from it, so it happens in the world. The
That
entire
must be
origin of the season is connected to the kidnapping of Persephone.
Yeah, I get what you mean. That must be an interesting talk to have. Mother, the crops aren't doing well. Oh, dearie, it seems that
Just
Thor
blame
and
the
Sif are
gods.
at it again.
Yeah.
It
Again,
would seem...
it's the common thing about, mankind all over the world, when you don't know shit, just blaming on someone else if you don't comprehend.
Oh, so apparently Sif's a tsundere. Despite her saying she longs for Thor's death, she's asking Balder to prevent his death. Cute. Maybe some marriage counseling is what you two need.
Took you long enough. Okay, Jesus, what are those arrows made of if the Hydra can actually, get decapitated by them?
True, yeah, she's technically not using a cursed weapon. So they're
Shit.
literally now bringing out the reserves from Valhalla to fight these guys.
Oh, right.
A god having to ask a mortal a question.
Judge Odgie, what are you doing here?
Eh.
Excuse me, can you three not all talk at once? It's I can't understand you.
What, are they implying that Seid's like a reincarnation of Odin's wife?
No idea.
I mean, they got Loki on their side, so
I am
who knows? The
partially
odds might be a
surprised
little bit more in their favor.
I am partially surprised he actually committed to helping.
Hmm.
Of course, if there is one thing about Loki in Norse mythology is that when he is determined to see a goal through, he will actually see it through. To the point where, even though he was dying after his fight with Heimdall, he stayed alive just to see Ragnarok go through. So, do the Valkyrie just take someone back to Valhalla and go, okay, break time. Break time's
Basically.
over, back in the fight.
Oh, so Odin wants to use the gift of the Seid-Kona's prophecy to see how the world ends. Sure, some blood, why not?
You sacrificed yourself to yourself. That sounds like the absolute height of a god's ego somehow.
It's one of those things where you best not to wrap your... Why cabbages?
Yeah.
Oh no, they're
It's
going to
just a
start the Black
rat.
Plague.
Oh, it's just a cute mouse. I saw some blinking light. I must go find them. What was that? Egil, god fucking damn it.
I love it. Everyone's coming despite their significant others telling them not to come.
For true love conquers all or some bullshit like that.
Yep. Also, gotta give Leaf credit. Dude's fighting well for someone with a flat out leg injury. Okay, now you're just showing off. You could have done that without the leap and twirl.
It's cool, shut up. If Legolas could do that in the early 2000s, so can she.
And now you've got an arrow in your leg. Okay, the knife was able to cleave that god's arm off? What?
Well, the Anyar are more like the ground force. I'm not sure if they are to be considered deities themselves.
Fair enough, though. Damn, how strong is she to be able to cleave the guy's arm off, armor and everything, with
Remember,
just a
the
knife?
Vanir do have some level of, demigod status. I mean, I guess. Oh. Oh, he's
Okay.
TFing into an actual wolf. Holy shit.
Isn't
This
there
is
any
a
Vegas?
thing.
I guess it's just the extra power that was given to him by
Oh, no,
the
this
oldest
is
wolf.
animality.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who watching this were very happy about it. Is this what Jacob from Twilight thinks he is, in terms of being cool?
I guess. Oh, and I guess he's so badass that he manages to summon the other wolves to help him. Hey. If ever there were an 11th hour superpower, Jesus.
God, I forgot the name of the werewolf character from Killer Instinct. It's kind of like that. Just, I can't picture him being voiced by Peter Stormare.
I'm not really a Killer Instinct fan, so I'm not sure which character you're talking
Rare,
about.
basically, when they made the first Killer Instinct, used a couple of movie monster characters archetypes with a serial number filed off. Spinal, the skeleton was based around Jason and the Argonauts skeletons, for example. Chief Thunder was your average, Native American stereotypes, and so on. Sucks. It's about family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in order to do that, I backstabbed my way through everything. But if I made some puppy dog eyes, people would just believe me.
Okay, this is a bit of a change since from what I recall, Ragnarok is really just all about the gods
Yes,
hashing it
the
out with
mortals
each other.
really are more than spectators outside of, the warriors that were worthy to be in Valhalla.
But I guess in this version, okay, either he's trying to prevent his kids' death in the Ragnarok prophecy, or he's
Probably.
strictly using the mortals' involvement to
God
kick
of War
off Ragnarok.
Ragnarok did something similar to this, just in its own way. Oh, you could avoid being Ozzy Osbourne with that crow, Alright, let's see what the prophecy tells us.
Oh,
Yeah, Thor gets killed by the spear.
a giant wolf
No,
sea
that's
creature.
No, that's your.
Jormungandr or Midgardsormr. Remember, at the end of Ragnarok, the two are destined to fight and kill each other.
Fenrir.
Of course. Which is destined instead to eat the sun and the moon, if I remember correctly. And what?
Hi,
Oh,
Jesus.
hi, Jesus.
Jesus, what?
Is Odin just seeing the fact that people will stop believing him or something?
I don't know. Like,
Yeah, I guess that is.
oh, I guess so.
You see the fact that he's destined to fall as one of the old gods, while people will change, their religion. What monotheistic people do to a motherfucker.
Yes, behold, New York City! Be not afraid, my child, for he loves you.
This feels like the culmination of one of those moments in Something About where Kirby summons Jesus to redeem the villain or something. What the hell is happening?
So the plot twist of Ragnarok, it's all about Jesus in the end.
More like the series telling me that the Nordic pantheon is not destined to. Oh, there you go.
Well, if it's any consolation, this weird comic company named Marvel will rejuvenate interest in Norse mythology.
What is a comic?
Well, it's better than other things that will rejuvenate interest in Norse mythology. I will say that. Oof.
Oh God! I'm part of me is almost surprised they didn't have him flash forward to that.
Odin.
And,
You need to stop
Why?
the transforming every 2 seconds. Oh, I guess there goes the
Also,
Seid-Kona.
did you have to kill me in the naked form? How am I still alive?
I have no idea.
She didn't need those organs, I guess. I don't know. Did you write it down in a diary?
Oh, I thought it was stupid to do that.
What is that roaring I hear?
In a sense, you could say
I
her
died.
dying makes you die inside.
Oh, that is sad.
Wait, what?
Now I will use my intestines to...
Become the purple woman? She always comes back? What? What?
I guess she's been promoted to deity.
So, Odin killing her was just her saying, okay, you passed my test, you can be a goddess.
Also, maybe because she consumed one of the ravens, I guess.
I really hope this episode explains this and it's not something that was left for the second season.
Trova, again, I haven't seen ahead, but I'm pretty sure it's the latter.
That's why I said I hope, because, yeah, it does seem to point towards this being, God, either a cliffhanger or something that ends, but with,
Also,
with many
Zach,
mysteries left.
you got it wrong. It was Achilles who actually dragged the body of Hector around, not this.
So, 2v1.
Yeah, but that one is 4.
Oh wow, someone actually remembered that Loki is supposed to be a god of fire. At least in some capacity.
I guess now it's 3v1. Make it 4. 4 against 4. 5.
Well, yeah,
6.
everyone who survived. Yeah, get up.
We can talk about it later when we're not in doom of dying.
Well, you could say that again, considering the season was cancelled.
Boy, you know he must love you if he came even after you injured him.
Hashtag relationship goals.
I love it. It's like, he's like, yeah, I know we're kind of the bad guys, but screw it, in for a penny.
I mean, I still would argue that they're not 100%. Yes, they have compromised themselves to arrive to this point, but I still argue that their cause is still just to some degree.
Oh yeah. Like they're not 100% the bad guys, but one could say that what they're doing could screw over the world as far as they know it, which in most people's eyes makes them the bad guys. That being said, yeah, this probably all would have been solved a lot better true if the gods weren't dicks, so yeah, it's not to say that this is completely on them.
God's not being dicks challenge
Oh!
impossible.
Ouch.
That being said, if Loki dies here, will that sort of throw Ragnarok
I
off
mean,
its
it's
path,
Loki. I
given the
can
stipulation?
100% believe he's just faking it.
That is true. Even before the MCU made it a thing, that
It's
was a
literally
lot
a
off.
shtick.
Yeah.
Do that till he's 90.
Till you're 90.
Oh, and there goes Peter Stormare, I guess. Yeah, there he goes.
Also, with that purple energy, though.
Too much pink energy is dangerous.
Herbor.
Mm-hmm. Ow.
That's gonna leave a mark.
Well, a bit more than that. You got
Oh,
whacked by a
Jotuns.
tree. So this is what revenge is. That is this what it's supposed to be? This is what your revenge will get you: more dead bodies.
Let's see. So that's potentially half the party dead if we count Seid-Kona's death as like a true death, assuming that, that wasn't just always part of the transformation. No.
Speaking of that,
There you go.
There came a time when the old gods died. That is such a great way to introduce a story. I miss Jack Kirby.
I'm sorry. Who are you?
No. Remember, you kind of took up cursed weapons, which, probably means in their eyes you aren't worthy.
Which is extra sad in her case because remember she had 3 children taken away from her,
So
in
why did they
battle.
show up then?
Because they
Well,
taken
they
off
are.
the others.
Also, I think they were there to judge and whatnot. Yep, she's going the other way instead.
Yeah, there you go. You need to start doing that.
And you took her on a revenge quest. Like, yeah, don't
To
get
be
me
fair,
wrong.
it's not like she was pointing, a sword at her head. She was willing to join her.
So I get the feeling Sigrid's gonna have a lot of guilt in that regard.
It's kind of like with Nier. Sacrifices will be made, but we all make our choices.
Well, that's flipping tragic. Which, to be fair, almost any deity mythology has a good dose of tragedy.
For noting that, again, if you don't remember, most of the classic pantheons did conceptualize the afterworld outside of Valhalla. In this case, it's just not that much. The best you could get is if you were judged positively by the Egyptian, pantheon, like Anubis or, whoever was attending the scales with the plume at the time, because your reward was communist heaven, where you have your government assigned plot of land that you cultivate and befriend with your neighbors. That's it.
So I love how this death was so tragic that even the gods are like, okay, time out. So even
I'll just
battle,
Yeah, no, sorry, mate. We're way too into this shit at this point.
still, you gotta love how things have gotten so heavy that even battle hungry 4 is like, okay, maybe we've gone a little too far. You
my
know, you're in
mom.
stabbing distance, just saying.
Well, to be fair, it's not just simple. Remember, they showcased that even hitting him, is like trying to hit the thunder itself.
Oh boy.
Do you mind? I'm talking here.
There you go, there's the crown. And I'm pretty sure I understand what material is that, but yeah, again, it is true. All the shit started because Thor was an asshole who mistakenly believed the Jotuns were hiding Loki.
Which admittedly was due to Loki's own trickery, which Sigrid doesn't address as much. I do
Oh, it
wonder if
doesn't
maybe
fucking
that's.
matter, It was her wedding
Oh!
still.
Told you.
Thanks, Baldir.
Slow
Of
mo.
course, it needs to be slow-mo. Yeah, of course, thought so. It was mistletoe. The one thing that can harm Belder.
Well, well, Sigrid, you may have gotten your wish because this is what kicks off Ragnarok.
No hard feelings.
Oh boy.
So what's going on now?
I guess in the end, you still care about Belder. Oh, piece of shit. Like, that fucking face. Oh. Oh. Well, thank you, Loki. As usual. This is why you don't have any friends.
Wait, but can't she not go to Valhalla because she was using her cursed weapon as well?
I guess Loki just gives her an extra permission or some shit. I don't know.
In hindsight, maybe I didn't think this revenge through. Wow.
Peace. Loki out.
Revenge claimed her life in the end.
So at the end of the day, she doesn't get her revenge and instead just dies.
Well, I think Loki's saying, hey, you're dead, so you'll get sent to Valhalla where you can try and kill Thor.
I was gonna say
Which-
this is giving me really bad Halloween Resurrection vibes.
Well, wasn't that how it started instead of how it ended?
Well, I mean, it felt like the end of the series Dignity.
Well, not the first time it happened, because that's like the constant thing with the Halloween franchise. Again,
But that said,
the one thing, the one continuity where they got better was the one in the third movie.
I still don't get it though. Why does she get to go to Valhalla when she was definitely using a cursed weapon like Hervor?
Maybe she wasn't holding it when she died. I don't know what the intricacies of that are.
I guess it's kind of a bit jarring because it literally happened just a few
Maybe
minutes
they
ago
were
in the
going to explain that
episode.
in the second season.
Hey.
Can you not?
Wait, was season 2 going to be Sigrid having to work with Thor now to get revenge on Loki? The god who was trying to help her get revenge on Thor in the first
I don't
place?
think her face, means she at least was going to be super, cooperative on the matter. Hey, that's the title of the episode.
Now, don't you see, Tio? Across the course of season 2, they would have truly learned to work together.
Or
God help
not,
her.
because now I can finally say it because I did some minor research in the meantime. So the reason this was cancelled, this season was cancelled, is that apparently Netflix was not tolerating any more Zack Snyder at this point. So they basically cancelled every single project he was working for them. The animated series for Army of the Dead, where it was going to tie in to Rebel Moon, cancelled. The sequels to Rebel Moon, cancelled. The sequels to Army of the
Damn.
Dead, cancelled. And the season 2 of this, cancelled as the last, nail in the coffin. This is probably why Zack Snyder is now working on his solo projects. But that is
Why did they kick him to
depressing.
the curb? Did he piss in their cereal or something? As far as I know,
If I had
yes,
to
Zack
guess,
Snyder's.
maybe Rebel Moon costed too much and did not pay that much and it was ridiculed. Remember, he was even nominated at the Razzies for worst remake, ripoff, or sequel,
And like, Which is weird because everything seemed to suggest that, well, granted, again, one of the frustrating things about streaming is that unless a company outright says it, it's hard to gauge how much of a success something is. But I thought Rebel Moon was apparently on track for sequels and whatnot, but I guess it must have been a failure. Like, okay, do we have like a flat out stated reason for why they broke ties with him, or
Again,
that's just up for
if I had to start, I
speculation?
guess, like I said, it's because the viewership for his products did not pay off as much as they wanted. So
So wouldn't that
Netflix
wouldn't
giveth, Netflix taketh.
So wouldn't that figure? We were really getting something good, arguably, with Twilight of the Gods, but well, his past stuff, I
I
guess,
mean,
screwed it
I
over.
still stand
Again,
on my
as far as
point
we
where they
know.
argue also Rebel Moon still had potential. I don't really see it as the trash fire as a lot of other people saw. But what can I do about it?
God. So do we at least have any behind the scenes notes on what we would have gotten
No,
from future seasons?
no, at least not that we know. What like
Nah,
so basically instead, Sigrid gets trapped in Valhalla forever with Thor. The end.
Which, okay, again, I guess I might as well ask a few questions that won't get explained. So, yeah, we're never going to really figure out what was the whole deal with Seed becoming a goddess. Odin was apparently off to do something. And, like, okay, Thor being in Valhalla, I can't tell if that was, like, Freya taking him there to have a timeout, or they were
Probably
implying
that,
he
because
died in
again, throughout the
some.
entire the entire series, he seems almost mad. You can see that in the stare that he has, But at the very end, he seems more calm in how he addresses Sigrid, which really feels in contrast with how he was treating her like 5 minutes before. But
Maybe
again,
Valhalla has a calming effect or
that
something.
this is really all just speculation and anything. So who the fuck knows at this point?
Well, okay, before we do our final thoughts, though, one question. Do you guys think that on its own, this thing works, or that it's hurt by the fact that it won't get a sequel? And I don't mean in the sense that, well, obviously we won't get to see the full thing, but do you feel like at least on its own it can possibly stand as like a
I
standalone story that
mean,
hints at
with a
more?
depressing kind of ending, I suppose, but it still feels incomplete as a thing. I'm not particularly bothered by stuff like the Seid-Kona ascending to godhood or Odin just fapping off, because that's usually how a lot of this myth goes, especially with Odin being paranoid and everything. But you can still tell that, there's still a piece of a puzzle missing, like, some level of catharsis against Loki. Because he spent the entire series doing puppy dog guys and telling, no guys, you see, my cousins just because they're taking my children and shit. And then he basically backstabs everyone in the way he wants.
Which, hey, credit to the story. If it gets someone to be endeared to Loki, that's a good representation of his trickster nature. And even if he is really doing this for his children, he still does it in the most dickish way possible. But man, how funny would it have been if each season was going to be Sigrid teaming up with a god? Like season 1 was her teaming up with Loki. Season 2 would have been her teaming up with Thor for the most biggest source of irony, since Thor is technically what kicked off season 1. And then, I don't know, maybe assuming the third season was going to be the last season, because Netflix shows do sometimes do the rule of three thing, maybe she would have teamed up with both Thor and Odin, who's come to terms with Ragnarok or some
Or
jazz like
Thor and
that. I don't
Loki
know.
against Odin.
That'd be something.
Alright, however, in the meantime, let's see, what do we think about what we got at the end of the day, Dweebs?
to be honest, it was a bit disappointing at the end. Sorry. It turns out the main character not only doesn't get to get her revenge after all the moral and physical stress that she's been through, she just gets offed by Loki, and the end doesn't even specify that there's going to be any kind of fight. It's just more like they're going to team up and then they'll eventually hash it out or something. But yeah, I mean, the fight itself, minus the slow mo, was actually pretty solidly made. Honestly, that's about it. It had a good looking fight, but but yeah, you could tell that they were trying to get a second season, but they just haven't. Not sure why. Because yeah, Netflix could just cancel
Yeah,
anything for any reason.
even if it
Like
seems to be doing fine, like the Dark Crystal. So you're done, Lives?
yeah, that's me done. I think overall, the series as a whole had some good moments and has a lot of promise, but in the end,
It doesn't even matter.
yeah, its incompleteness
Can I ask
is
you to
gonna.
jog your memory and try to see if you can compare it with the other stuff that Zack Snyder did for Netflix? Like, how you put it on scale compared to Rebel Moon and Army of the Dead?
I mean, I still think Army of the Dead is the best one of the bunch.
Oh, even better than
Followed,
Army of Thieves?
I mean, both of them.
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough. They kind of
Followed
go
by
hand in hand.
this series, and then right at the bottom are both Rebel Moon movies.
All right, then, Jova.
I will say this. When we first started this show, I wasn't quite sure what to expect, save for some of the usual Zack Snyderisms, and boy, did he not disappoint in making you remember that this is a Zack Snyder project. But I do feel that what we had was a pretty neat and creative take on Norse mythology and the potential lead up to Ragnarok. Like, I will say this, out of all his projects, this was definitely one of the least deserving to be canned prematurely like that. Each episode, I feel, is pretty good. There are a few hiccups here and there with the pacing and whatnot, and I do feel like sometimes the characters are a little too stupid for the sake of the plot, Norse mythology or not, and whatnot. Now, I'm not gonna blame them for ending things relatively open, since from what I can recall, it sounds like as far as Snyder knew, he was getting a second season when he made that finale, so I will say that this is not one of those cases where he foolishly did a cliffhanger, especially since, to be fair, they stuffed a lot into these 8 episodes, and if that was all they were granted for the season, I can totally get this not really being the end. Granted, I guess to be fair, it's not like the show's called Ragnarok, so technically one could say, oh, it's not actually about Ragnarok, it's about preventing Ragnarok, or some alternate timeline where the gods all survive Ragnarok, or some jazz like that. That being said, they are clearly setting up for something around it and whatnot. I do feel like this last episode does have some of the more notable hiccups in that, again, maybe this would have been explained in a future season, but a lot of stuff just happens for the sake of the plot. Now, Seid-Kona becoming a goddess, okay, fair and fine. I'm not too bugged about that one. I feel like maybe they would have built up on that. But I'm sorry, there's the plot on why does Sigrid get sent to Valhalla? She is literally the reason, nay, the spearhead of this whole war and whatnot. And like, again, it doesn't help that just a few minutes ago we saw Hervor get dragged down to hell because of the cursed weapons, even though Sigrid was not only leading the charge, she was definitely using a cursed weapon against Thor. In fact, literally killed one of the gods. Damn. But no, she can go to Valhalla because we need the plot to. Again, I'll be fair. Maybe they were going to explain it in a season. However, until we get some behind the scenes stuff, until we get something that truly confirms that, it is literally up in the air in that regard. So it could be anyone's guess or fan fiction to explain this or that. That is, again, one issue that does sometimes come with cliffhangers, and that you have to wait for this for explanations. And then, I get it. Some explanations, yes, you do have to wait for it to keep you in suspense. So other explanations, I'd argue, could warrant that explanation. Again, this could be either of those, so I won't harp too much on it. It's just one thing that kind of gets me to roll my eyes, and I will admit, I do get that Sigrid is really, really steadfast in her vengeance and all that, but I do feel one thing I was a bit disappointed in is that she never stops to maybe consider, maybe I went too far. I'm not asking for her to stop trying to kill Thor, but I feel like at the very least we could have had maybe a few seconds to her pondering, oh god, I've taken my friends to essentially early graves and whatnot, and on the whims of Loki, who, yeah, what a shock, Loki stabs her. I guess he at least has the courtesy to not do it through the back, but I digress. But okay, at the end of the day, I do feel like the series as a whole is good. It's one of Zack Snyder's better projects in a while and whatnot. Now, that being said, I think I would probably have to give Army of Thieves a bit more over it. And by extension, I guess Army of the Dead, but more so Army of Thieves, since that's the one of the two I like better. It's definitely better than Rebel Moon, though. Again, Rebel Moon did have the potential, and it's not a complete trash fire, maybe, but I can't deny that Rebel Moon just had a lot of problems that bogged it down for me. Now, I do believe sequels could have improved on it, but, well, as we've established, we ain't getting those sequels. Which is, again, altogether kind of a shame. Even if, we weren't the biggest fan of Snyder material, Snyder definitely does have a dedicated fan base who would have probably kept it fueling. Again, maybe I'm talking out of my ass, and maybe it turns out that Rebel Moon was a big failure in whatever metrics are used to judge streaming material, but I don't know. The whole thing feels messed up. At the very least, they should have let him complete Twilight of the Gods. So, at the end of the day, Twilight of the Gods feels like a good, but sadly incomplete project to me. So, assuming you didn't watch the whole thing with us commentary-wise, if I were to recommend it, I'd say if you're a big Zack Snyder fan, yes, watch this. It is definitely Zack Snyder at one of his better bouts of quality, while still having stuff to remind you it's Zack Snyder. That said, just know it's an incomplete venture, and if you are not a fan of those, avoid this. Which brings us to your final thoughts,
Yes.
Teal.
I would say that the only disappointment is the fact that this was, not completed. I wouldn't even mind that if Netflix did the whole usual treatment of have a 60-minute episode that serves to conclude things instead of an entire final season. At least something that finishes
Like a
things off.
movie.
Yeah, the equivalent, a short movie in this case, because 60 minutes, which would be the equivalent of 3 episodes. But again, if it's a case where they were just fed up with Zack Snyder at this point, there was nothing that was going to convince me otherwise, which is a shame. Out of all of the projects that Zack Snyder was doing for Netflix, I think this one had the potential to continue a bit just for the second season, mind you, and then conclude, not necessarily with a rule of three. But I could have seen it happen. But that being said, I was also, hopeful for both Army of the Dead and, Rebel Moon anyway. So, yeah, I guess it was just a fool's errand at the end of the day. But what we did got in the end, I was satisfied with what we got, even if it takes, its steps to be different from the traditional kind of myths, while at the same time trying to homage them in some kind of fashion. I still don't understand why they chose specifically the translated title of the Götterdämmerung, which I guess, like I said, the fourth act of the Ring den Nibelungen opera, which yes, does involve the Norse pantheon in some capacity, but the Twilight of the Gods in that series happens for different reasons than this. It involves, the killing of Siegfried and the other kind of stuff that do not happen in this. So it feels like a bit of a mishmash. It's kind of similar to how maybe it's just kind of like with the Infinity War movie. It's just stealing a title from another story because it's more popular and more marketable, I guess.
I guess, they figured Twilight of the Gods. That gives you an idea that it's going to be about Ragnarok, given the gods is Twilight and whatnot, and it's a cool sounding title. Which does remind me, what did you think of this series' take on Norse mythology in
No, like I
general?
said, I like it. You can tell that they're trying to take its own spin to things with a definitely obvious Zack Snyder print attached to it for stuff, like having the Valkyries running around super naked, But to be fair, this series has, absolutely no problem in showing nudity all over the place, so it's not particularly biased one way or another. So I do appreciate for that. The one thing that I will say stands out is the thing that drives James noticed at the beginning of episode 7 the somber remix of Can't Touch This. Like, yes, you can tell it's another Zack Snyder kind of thing to insert, pop songs and even remixes of them. But this is arguably the one case where it stands out way too much for its own
I
good.
think it's because it's the only time it happens in the series, if
It's
my
not just
memory
that.
serves me
It's that
correctly.
it's a remix of modern songs for this kind of context. It just feels odd, and like this is the kind of thing that you will see in a James Gunn product, Guardians of the Galaxy, because it kind of makes sense for that kind of context. While in this, it just feels like someone wanted to have fun. I wouldn't be too surprised if it was a mandate for Netflix. You had to include this one particular pop song at one point, so I was like, fine, here's the check note done for you. I hope you like it. I mean, yeah, I guess it kind of makes sense because in the context of the episode, it's a song that reflects to Thor and the fact that, you cannot harm him, can't touch this. But it still comes off as very odd. I still also understand what was Velder's angle at the end of the day in all of this. He seemed to be understanding on the situation, but at the same time, he seems to be lacking enough wisdom to understand how fucked things are, and the compromises that he tries to reach are not gonna work for any of the party involved. Again, maybe this is one of those stories that operates on the idea that because he was rendered immune to every type of physical damage, he also becomes numb to stuff like basic emotion and common sense. Maybe that's what they're going for.
My theory is that Zack Snyder was going for a Dr. Manhattan thing for him, where he's become so powerful that
Distant,
he's not aware. And I guess, to be fair, there is the tragic irony that for as much as Sif badmouthed Thor to his face, she was so concerned for his safety that she made Baldur promise to protect him, which is what leads to Baldur's death. Although, how did someone as all-powerful as Baldur not just have the power to teleport Thor out of the way instead of needing to cover for him? I don't know.
Because he believed that he was invulnerable, he was not expecting the mistletoe on top of the spear. Remember, that's the one big crux of the mythos themselves. Baldur dies by not knowing what his weakness is, but it's because of Loki's manipulation that happens. Again, speaking of which, Loki is an absolute bastard in this series, and that is more in line with what he kind of does. Although they clearly are trying to have the cake and eat too by trying to humanize him a bit too much. I argue because, like I said, we spent the entire series trying to say, yes, I do these wild things, but I am justified because I too have a soul and I care about my children. The gods have been dickish against me, so I do have some empathy towards you as a human being. And even if it seems I'm manipulating you, I have some way of, relate to you. But then at the end, he just has Sigrid because it's the more convenient way for her to arrive to Valhalla in his eyes. I'm not kidding. That's what the synopsis said. The only reason why he murders her is because he thinks, sending her to Valhalla after Thor, that's the most efficient way to do it.
Ironically, if that anything was anything to go by, he may have screwed over his plan since it's implied that she's going to work together with Thor. Unless that was also part of his master
plan in taking down Odin on the long run, because that's what Loki is in a nutshell,
60 chess.
And gaslighting on top of gaslighting.
I will say, though, what you did mention is part of one of my frustrations with the show, in that there's a lack of calling Loki out for his BS. Like, even when Sigrid sees him murder one of her friends right in front of her, she's like, whatever, revenge. Like, she barely calls him out, and mostly just says, hey, fight with us. And he goes, well, okay, and fights with them. It's like, I wish we could have at least gotten a scene of Sigrid absolutely, taking it to him, especially when his machinations get her friends killed, kind of like how Thor killed her family, which, again, ironic that this might be part of his plan. Get her to want to hate Thor, but then somehow lead it to her dying and I guess befriending Thor, which will lead to, I'm guessing, the fight that causes Thor's death. Again, maybe Loki was really thinking that far ahead, but yeah, I do think that one of my issues is that I feel like the show coddles Loki a little too much. And again, maybe that wasn't the plan. Maybe it was going to be revealed in the final season that, the show's been taking us for a loop like Loki himself. But again, we don't have that last season now, do we?
Speaking of Odin, kind of bonkers what he did with him towards the end. I already liked the fact that they separated some of his particular personas. The old father, the Great Wanderer, and the more martoriated figure. But the fact that his greatest fear is for his religion to die in being supplanted by Christianity. That's not bad of an angle. Again, it kind of reminds me of. I keep coming back to this, but it kind of reminds me of the original plan that David Jaffe had for God of War when it was conceived as a trilogy, a conclusive kind of trilogy that was he going to see you controlling a God of War for each of the main three pantheons. And at the end, it was going to be revealed that they were the three wise men visiting Jesus in Bethlehem. Again,
Beautiful.
super bonkers, would have killed the series and everyone would have laughed at it, but God, that one was one thing I would have loved to see, just for how insane it was. And this comes on that kind of level. I wanted to see if that kind of paranoia, where would they have led Odin? Because they were clearly going to plan something with him, especially with the Seid-Kona ascending to godhood via her sacrifice. Speaking of which, I also like, her character and everything. One thing that I will say in positivity to this is that for being a Netflix series, this tries to avoid a lot of the cliches that the Netflix series tended to have in trying to shoehorn in specific characters that serves to fill in a quota in trying to, be
Appeal.
appealed in terms of equality. While there is definitely, that kind of, thought process in here, it feels very organic and the characters feel characters themselves first before having to be identified by, who they are and what they represent, which is more than I can say for a lot of other series that instead, parade that front and center. So I do appreciate the people involved in this series for, taking what they could do and actually building up upon it instead of outright rejecting it, which, as we noted, as it's seen, leads instead to only bad results. It's not about a case of having to embrace it begrudgingly or having to reject, accordingly. It's trying to see if you can work as a writer into, working them with your plot. I think that's pretty much it. I will say again, the voice acting is fine. Some of his roles are particularly interesting to me, like Peter Stormare, as Ulfr. That's his name. There was some Zack Snyder alumni put in here, but in general, I do appreciate what they did. Overall. Same goes for the score. It has been fine so far. The only thing, like I said, is that the fact that this series is incomplete. That's really the one shame thing about it, which is applicable also to Army of the Dead and yes, Rebel Moon. So yeah, that's where the Zack Snyder Netflix saga ends, I guess. Not with a
I
bang,
guess it'll be
but not necessarily with a whimper, but with a horn of mead. A toast, I guess.
delicious. Cheers. Until whatever Zack Snyder does next surfaces, wherever that be.
Alright, see ya.
Ta-ta.